How was the vacation?
It was great. It was nice.
All set? Great. Good evening and welcome to the Hopkinton Select Board meeting for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. I call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. Select Board member Shahidul Manan will be participating remotely, and all other members of the Select Board are present for this meeting at Town Hall, room 215, 216 in person. At this time, I will ensure that Select Board members participating remotely can hear and be heard. Mr. Manan, can you hear, please? Does their Zoom coordinator have any contact with Mr. Manan?
I have to get promoted as a panelist until I can see. So hold on.
Okay. All right, we're going to come back to that. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda.
So he's not on Zoom yet.
This meeting is being recorded. All votes will be taken by roll call vote because we have one person on Zoom.
Okay. I move to enter into executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy for litigation in Bank of America versus Michelle Bolson, a.k.a. Michelle Bolson Brandt, a.k.a. Michelle O'Teary, the town land. It's a land court number 24, with a date, it says M miscellaneous 000450, because an open session meeting may have a detrimental effect on litigation position of the board. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to consider strategy for negotiations with non-union personnel, town manager. To allow Elaine Lassers and Brian Bertram to participate in the executive session, to reconvene an open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
So we have a motion on the table to go into executive session. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
Shahidul is on Zoom now. So
Is he on Zoom now?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just go back. Mr. Manan, please, if you could please let us know that you can hear us and you'll be able to participate remotely.
He is muted.
You may be muted.
Or he could have gone on in executives in the other room.
Or he could be gone into the executive session.
He could have gone in there, yeah.
All right, we
We'll
won't.
see you in executive session.
We'll make sure you can hear us, but we don't need him for this particular vote. So we have a motion on the table on a second, specifically executive session. Any questions, comments? Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes.
Joe Clark, yes.
Brian Herr, yes?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Okay, we'll be back, folks, as soon as we can. Thank you.
Shahidul?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
great. And you can hear
I can
us?
hear you and everything.
You can
I
hear
can
us?
hear you, yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry about the confusion earlier. I think we are back live and ready to go, correct? Yeah, we are. Okay, so with that, the Select Board just wrapped up an executive session, and we'll begin public session with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
I'm playing to
Thank you. So we are a little early this evening. That clock is slow. The world's clock is at 6:17 right now on everyone's cell phone, so we're going to go with that, not that. But we have, typically we have public forum at 6:30, so because we're early, we're going to go ahead and do a couple of other things, and then at 6:30 we'll come back to public forum so that we don't keep people waiting, nor do we go too early and people lose the opportunity to come in and speak. So the first item I think we can tackle in advance of sort of the typical schedule would be the consent agenda, item number 5. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. One is a new employee. The Select Board will confirm the town manager's appointment of William Burke as a dishwasher at the senior center. Great, I think that's been open for a while. And secondly, we want to accept a gift. The Select Board will consider accepting a donation of $100 from the public library, or for the public library, from Sharmi Ratnapara on behalf of her children's lemonade stand for purchase of children's books. That's really cool. Anybody want to make a motion on the consent agenda or break anything out?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Thank you for the donation, that's very kind.
Yeah, that's great. And the kids did it through a lemonade stand. I love it. Okay, Mr. Manon, any questions, comments?
No, same. Thanks for the donations, and I appreciate all the good work.
We'll do our best this evening to come out to you, Mr. Manon, but if I forget you and you've got something, please don't be shy. I'm sure you won't, but I don't mean to, we don't mean to ignore you if that happens. Okay, so with that, Mr. Manon, how do you vote, please? Okay, Mary Jo.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Brian Herr, yes.
Joe Clark, yes.
Mira Bush, yes.
Mr. Manon.
Shahidul Manan, yes?
Okay, great, thank you. So the consent agenda this passes, goes forward. I thought the next thing we could do with a little extra time is the town manager report. It's rather brief, given the lack of a town manager last week. So we want to give that a go. Is that okay? Elaine, you okay with
Yes.
that now? If you would, please.
So just an update on the Main Street Corridor project. All 12 transformers have been delivered and installed. Crews are working on the preliminary work associated with them and should be completed within the next month. And then the start of the cutover from overhead electric to the underground will begin late September or early October. And then the other utilities will follow from that. The overhead transfer work will be occurring on the remainder of the project, and the utility poles between the police station and Ash Street will be moved once the new underground infrastructure is operational. But in the other section, that will be removed as soon as all the wires are transferred to the new poles. The old poles will be removed. So we won't have double poles there. The work on the removal of the defective paint and the new paint on the various structures, infrastructure, signals and so forth is ongoing and should be completed in the next couple of months. Amarillo is back on the site working and working on the brickwork, the landscaping, and the other work that needs to be finished up along the right-of-way. And that's basically where we are right now.
Great. Anything else to report?
No.
Any questions of the town manager about the Main Street Corridor project?
I did want to ask about the double poles and the wires. It's been since at least 4th of July, especially at the corner of Wood and West Main, that there's been a very leaning pole, and about half the wires have been moved to the new pole, and the other half have not. So it just seems like a really long time, especially in what bad shape that pole is in. Do we know any more specific when they might move the rest of the wires?
I don't know the specific date, but I know it's been a topic of discussion, and each of the utilities will go in order. And I know a couple have been bundled together and be done at once. So I know the poles do get smaller as the wires are moved, so it is coming.
Okay.
But the pole is braced, so it's secure at the moment.
Anything else? Mr. Manon, any questions about the Main Street Corridor project?
Thanks for asking. Just a quick follow-up. So that's good progress, Elaine. I was wondering, do you see any risk or anything that you might need help to keep it on track, or we are looking okay for the timeline?
I think the Mass DOT has signed a contract that extends the project into next year. I think it's hoped that they'll be finished as soon as possible, but they did sign a contract for an extension.
And what is the new timeline?
I'm not,
I think it was March of 2025, but please don't quote me on that date. It's sometime in the first half of 2025, if I remember correctly.
I agree, I think so.
Yeah. They are tearing it up
Okay,
out there
thank
right
you.
now.
It'll be.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, once we have the final, we may want to communicate it and share the new baseline.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's all.
Yeah, they are tearing it up there right now. Like, I drove through the corridor the other day. I mean, I do it 10 times a day because I work in town, and there was 2 Eversource crews, 3 Amarillo crews, the folks doing the wall down at the end there, the brick people are going. I mean, it's just really taking off right now, so it's all good. And I know that Eversource is working hard underground on those transformers, so. Okay, so with that, and we still have a few minutes before 6:30, do we want to tackle liaison reports? I think that would be a good one to do now as well. Ms. Lafreniere.
I met with Sue Curies, and she's getting ready to make a presentation to us. And I met with her over the weekend. It's going along. I talked with Dottie Ferreter. They're making arrangements for next year's Boston Marathon, and the BAA has stated that I believe this week and next week the applications are going out for the runners right away.
They're out, yeah.
They're out, so if you're interested, get in touch. And I was going to meet with the assessors, but they weren't meeting tonight. And I just want to congratulate everybody who had something to do with the Pollyots and the Blooms and Brews and the porch, the porch musicians. It was a great weekend last weekend. It was beautiful weather, and it was a great weekend. I just want to congratulate. It's a lot of hard work goes into those. I want to congratulate everybody and remind people that this weekend is the Family Fun Day on the Common. So
High school.
that's all. I'm done.
It's at the high school.
Hmm?
It's at the school. It's not on the common.
It's at school now? Okay. Common last year.
Okay, all set?
Yeah.
Mr. Clark.
I've got nothing new to add this week.
Okay. Amy.
I do have a little bit of liaison from Historic District Commission, Commission on Disability, and CPC, just that the Commission on Disability is working with the Historic District Commission to improve the accessibility of the front of the library to try to get a push-button door and a better railings. So anyway, hopefully that will be at town meeting.
Okay,
So that's
great.
all I have.
Thanks. Mr. Manon, any liaison reports?
Not a lot, just had some continued discussion on budget and framework related with some of the stakeholders, but we'll firm it up as things progress and we get it on the agenda.
Okay, great. I have none myself. I was able to attend the Poly Arts Saturday morning. To your point, it was awesome. The number of booths was amazing. The number of people there enjoying it was great. I mean, it was a really, really nice day. So great to see Hopkinton enjoy such a great event. It's been going on for a long time, I think. It's like 30-some years, isn't it? So really well done. Okay, so with that, we'll check the liaison agenda item off our agenda. We still have a few more minutes. Let's try going through the future board agenda items quickly. We know we keep this list and we publish it, not that we're going to be doing all this evening, but just so everybody knows what we're working on. And I don't think there's anything here that we haven't either begun to address or have addressed. If we have addressed it and it's done, we take it off the list. We're going to talk about a couple of things tonight and next week for sure. But does anybody have anything else they want to add to this list that we have?
Not to add, but the Upper Charles Trail was scheduled for September. Oh, okay. That'll be next time. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
still on
next
schedule?
week. Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
Joe?
Nope.
Mary Jo?
No, other than, Sue's getting ready to make a presentation to us.
Okay.
That's it.
Mr. Menon, anything for future agenda items you want to add? We've got the stuff that we've been working on still here.
Yeah, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll cross that one off our list for the agenda. And it is now 6:27. Boy, we're getting a lot done here.
Can we affirm this new employee?
Do we have our new employee here? Because I think we're early for that, aren't we?
No.
Not yet, Elaine?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, it's 6:28. I'm assuming we have a full house now, so by the time we get started, people should be here.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're ready to go. All right, so now we'll move to public forum. We are a minute or two early. The public forum is an opportunity for residents to share ideas, opinions, or ask questions regarding their town government. We ask that comments be kept to 2 to 3 minutes, and we'll time that. We're not crazy about timing things, but we'll try to keep it reasonably timed so that we can keep the meeting moving along. Does anybody want to come up and address the board for any particular reason? Please join us right here.
Hi, my name is Margot Roman, and I have been a veterinarian in Hopkinton for over 41 years. And this is a place to share ideas, and listening to the Pledge of Allegiance, we say that with our heart, and we put our allegiance to it. And I just want to read the veterinary oath to you guys, because that's my allegiance as a veterinarian. Being admitted to the profession of veterinary medicine, I solemnly swear to use my scientific knowledge and skills for the benefit of society through the protection of animal health and welfare, the prevention and relief of animal suffering, and the conservation of animal resources, the promotion of public health, and the enhancement of medical knowledge. I will practice my profession conscientiously with dignity and in keeping with the principles of veterinary medical ethics. I accept as a lifelong obligation the continual improvement of my professional knowledge and competence. And so I've been saying that for 47 years. And I was so hurt by the fact that when I tried to reach out to the town during our pandemic experience, when I've studied bioterrorism preparedness in the 90s, I was the only one who was able to do that at the expert as a veterinarian. And I learned and I studied zoonosis because I myself am immune compromised, and I will continue to wear a mask now for a long time. But I try to use that knowledge and share it with my town and give my 47 years of experiencing zoonosis and studying this. And instead of helping to bring that forward, it was basically I got turned into the MDAR for mentioning medical ozone, which has been proven and shown to help animals and humans. And I'm insulted because I feel like I've used my scientific skills and knowledge, and it should not have happened. It should have been a curiosity by the public health department versus just shutting someone off. And so I stood up, and because of that, I've gotten cracked down and got my license taken for 2 years for a private email to my private clients. And I find it very insulting as an intelligent person who lectures around the world, who speaks at universities, who writes and writing 2 books, and to have that insult done and have my license taken away because of the way the Board of Health reacted to it. So for that, I'm very upset about it, and I've been of service to this town as much as I could, you know, whether it was taking care of the marathon bomb sniffing dogs or whatever, or working on the solar committee. I've tried to be progressive, and I've done this oath in my career. And we do a pledge of allegiance. Are we supposed to go against the allegiance of what we do? And the same thing with the rabies vaccine. I've been doing titers for animals that have cancer or autoimmune disease for 29 years. And suddenly now they're attacking it, that I cannot give these medical exemptions to these animals. And so I did vaccinate my dogs last week. And I am very scared that something might happen because the aunt of these dogs died from the rabies vaccine. And these dogs had high antibodies protecting them. And I was literally felt like my arm was being pulled behind my back and jerked up, that I have to put my own animals at risk when I am doing my job using my scientific skills and knowledge, protecting public health, protecting my animals' health. And so it's like you're going against your Pledge of Allegiance. I went against my oath. And I feel like the town should be like, we should appreciate people that are thoughtful and thinking about things and maybe at a little different angle, but are trying to help protect our public, which was, they didn't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear how to protect the public when they've already decided how to do it. And I'm sad because a lot of people died that maybe didn't have to, but I'm not a human doctor. I recommend them going to people that can do that. But I am a veterinarian and I take this oath. And I took this oath very seriously, and now I've taken something and put it against my oath and vaccinated my own animals who I felt were at risk because one has cancer and the other ones have autoimmune problems. You know, they're healthy, but they're subjected. Okay, time's up. Thank you.
Margot, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else for public forum?
Give everybody one of those. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Please.
Thank you. Hi, Kelly DiPaolo, 6 Hoyt Way, Hopkinton. 2 minutes is simply not enough time for me to express what I want to express, but something needs to be said tonight about last Friday's decision by the commissioner of the Post Commission, whereby she, Commissioner Kazarosian, reversed her own agency's August 15th suspension of Tim Brennan's post certification, thereby allowing Tim Brennan to immediately, yes, immediately, return to work at the Milford Police Department. I am sure by tonight, each of you have read that order. And at the very least, it should have given you great pause as you contemplate your liability personally and the liability you have exposed to this town as a result of the things the commissioner has now pointed out in her order. Again, there's way too many things to read tonight, to point out tonight that are important facts from the commissioner to discuss in this 2-minute window that I'm limited to. However, for now, I will read some key findings in that order, and then tomorrow I will send into you a summary of that order where I will break down for you the very obvious messages from the esteemed commissioner, Attorney Kazarosian. The bottom line is shocking to you, not to us. Chief Bennett wrote a notable letter, and I quote notable from the order that was released on Friday, that was submitted to the commissioner. She found that letter to be, quote, telling. One reason she found that letter so, quote, telling was that she put it clearly, and I'm quoting her words, clearly proves that the Hopkinton Police Department officers are trained to basically stand ready until the victim decides to move forward. Arguably, she said, that is exactly what Brennan did. The part of the letter that speaks to the Hopkinton Police Department's position that with a reluctant victim, the officers serve the victim to the best of their ability. And Tim Brennan was in compliance with the policy that is consistent with the victim, and I quote, victim-centered and trauma-informed approach taught by the Commonwealth's Adult Sexual Assault Law Enforcement Guidelines. So there you have it, folks. Tim Brennan complied with policy. Bottom line is that Tim's actions were in full compliance with the Hopkinton Police Department's policy and with Chief Joe Bennett's policy. Please look forward to the letter that I will send you tomorrow outlining further details about the Commissioner's report, and hope that you take action accordingly to set the ship right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else?
Hello. I'm Karen Crum, 12 Joseph Road. At the July 9th Select Board meeting, Attorney Brian Bertram spoke about an outside third-party agency who looked into the illegal releasing of a victim's protected identity and the origin of the unredacted reports that contain this information. At one point, he spoke about how good it was that we had the Northwest DA investigating this because they are an independent and thereby objective body, uninfluenced by any connections within Hopkinton. He pointed out the value that we didn't pay or direct them either. Likewise, last week, an equally independent, uninfluenced, unpaid agency issued a decision that impacts the Sergeant Tim Brennan case. And I would think that Attorney Bertram would respect that decision in the same way he respected the Northwest DA's. This third party who reviewed these findings against Tim Brennan was the Commissioner and Secretary of Post. She found that others from Post had erred in the suspension of Sergeant Brennan. In addition to her review that was specific to reinstating his post standing, she also reviewed all pertinent reports that led to Sergeant Brennan's termination from the Hopkinton PD and reported her findings. In addition to her statement supporting how Sergeant Brennan handled a sexual assault victim, she pointed out the deficiencies in a letter Chief Bennett submitted supporting his decision for terminating Sergeant Brennan and the deficiencies in the Hopkinton Police Department's policies at the time. And that simply supports my request tonight even more, which is to ask you to review all documents submitted to the Post Commission and the report generated from reviewing them, and act on the voters' request at town meeting that you reconsider the decision that was made to terminate Sergeant Brennan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening.
Good evening, please.
Sabine St. Pierre, 1 Woody Island Road. I have some concerns about the redaction policy that's being written and headed by our town council, Attorney Brian Bertram. Why are we asking, paying, and trusting Harrington Heap to write a redaction policy for our town when they are the entity that provided Hopkinton with an insufficient redacted document in the first place and knowingly allowed it to stay online for 3 days? Attorney Bertram said that that document, the interview transcript of Tim Brennan, the first complaint witness in the trial against Jay Porter, was reviewed for redaction by a member of Harrington Heap's legal team, but attempted to exculpate his firm by claiming that this person on his firm's legal team also assumed it had been previously redacted by someone else at Kroll Investigations. Bertram stated that maybe the person from his firm who was reviewing it had had a false sense of thinking it had been reviewed and redacted more times than it actually had, and had that false sense because he or she knew that the document had been circulated to the team, a team of people at Harrington Heap. After the Northwest DA's office investigated how insufficient redacted documents was released to the public, ADA George Gagney referred to interviewed witnesses' claims that Kroll Investigations had had its transcriptionist do the redactions, and that after that was done, nobody at Kroll conducted any further review. Because of this mistake, there have been severe consequences impacting the survivor and will no doubt cause a financial burden to the town and the taxpayers. And with the upcoming budgets, that's going to wreak some havoc. All of this could have been avoided had a dozen or so people that had looked at this, supposedly looked at this document, had they actually reviewed it and done their job. Attorney Bertram and his team of lawyers no doubt are under scrutiny for their past failures relative to the release of this victim's personal information. As a result of failures both by them and others to appropriately redact a certain transcript. I would submit to you that as a result of this present scrutiny, both in the town and inevitably in the courts, Attorney Bertram and his firm are in no position to be responsible for the development of redaction policy for this town. I would like to ask you, the Select Board, to review these findings and take them into consideration when deciding on our town's legal counsel or what investigative services we pay for. Our current ones have failed us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Matt?
Matt Kisner, 21 Curtis Road. I put the shirt and tie on, why not come up? I wanted to take a moment to actually thank each of you and Mr. Manon by extension virtually. I've had the opportunity to serve in town government for about 7 years now, 5 years on CIC, starting my 3rd year happily as its chair. In the 5 years I've been on that committee, I have no recollection of the committee ever being requested to come before the Select Board. And I can certainly confirm in my 3 years serving as chair now, this would be a first for us. I don't highlight this as a negative or to bring any skepticism to previous decisions. Rather, I highlight it to reflect as an indication that the board and the town by extension are having a serious conversation about our fiscal situation. That through transparency and open acknowledgement and discussion in this forum and many others, we can find a way through the challenging situation before us, benefit from the opportunity of reflecting more on our fiscal planning and fiscal discipline, find a better way of doing the things that we all want to do. And that is by supporting and enabling the development of the services, industries, buildings, and everything that makes this town exactly what it is. So to each of you, I look forward to the discussion we're going to have. There will be tough ones, there will be easy ones, and if you let me on my way, there might be some math and some technicality too. But I look forward to each of you and the town behind me and virtually being part of the discussion. There's work to do. I'm ready to do it. I hope you all are too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment. Seeing no further takers, we'll close that item now and move ahead to the next item. The next item is specific to the town manager's contract. The Select Board will consider voting to sign a contract with Elaine Lazarus, town manager. Normally, I go to the town manager and ask for input before we don't get into an agenda item. This one, we own it ourselves, so we'll give her a break. As you may or may not be aware, the board has spent some time over the last several weeks since selecting Elaine Lazarus to be the next town manager, working on the contract. The board went out to do what's called a market survey. We went out to surrounding towns. We went out to towns similar to Hopkinton, size, et cetera, and understood sort of what the town manager marketplace looks like for compensation and the like. We also looked at the contracts we had for the previous town manager, as well as the contract submitted and requested by Elaine to be considered as well. And we put all that together into the pot and stirred it all up and figured it all out. And we have settled on a contract that we feel is fair. We feel motivates the town manager to do the million things that she will have to do almost on a daily basis for the next few years. And we're excited to kind of get it wrapped up. So with that, does anybody have a motion they'd like to make to start the discussion, and we'll go from there?
I move to sign a 3-year contract with Elaine Lazarus, town manager.
Second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table in a second to sign a 3-year contract with Elaine Lazarus to be our town manager. Any discussion? Mr. Manon, any questions, comments?
No, I'm excited, Elaine, to have you on board, and it was a very thoughtful and thorough discussion, as Mr. Chair Brian mentioned. with the market analysis and all. So happy to have this contract and looking forward to a bright future working with you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Elaine, any thoughts, comments, questions?
No, but thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to serve the community. Very excited.
Great. Okay. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor, well, sorry, we got to do a roll call because Mr. Manan is remote. Mr. Manan, you want to start, please?
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Amy Rodabush, yes.
Joe Clark, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Brian Herr with enthusiasm, yes. Okay, congratulations, Elaine. You now have a contract. You are now the town manager. It's time to go to work. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, great. We are on to item number 6 now, please. We did jump around a little bit early on, so forgive me. Item number 6, new employee, the Director of Municipal Inspections, Elaine.
So tonight, we're presenting Christopher McWhite for the position of Director of Municipal Inspections. If you come forward with Jessica. So as many of you may know, Chuck Cadlick retired at the end of June, and so Mr. McWhite replaces Chuck Cadlick, who has retired. The position of Director of Municipal Inspections is in the Land Use Planning and Permitting Department, and this position oversees most of the inspections in that department, primarily building-related permits. The role performs highly skilled organizational, supervisory, and technical work related to the provision of inspectional services while actively supporting the land use department. The department includes building, zoning, planning, and conservation functions. The director is challenged daily to ensure compliance and enforcement with all related town, state, and federal regulations and laws and codes. The position also issues building permits. So Mr. McWhite's experience most recently has been with the town of Smithfield, Rhode Island for 4 years as building and zoning official. Prior to that, with the city of Lowell for 8 years, with the city of Newton for 2 years, and with the Metropolitan Boston Housing Partnership for 2 years. Education includes an associate degree from hotel and motel management and restaurant and food service management. He's a certified building official, a Mass certified inspector of buildings, a certified plumbing code specialist, a certified building code specialist, and serves as the International Code Council Northeastern Region Coalition Code Development Committee co-chair. References reveal that Christopher is extremely technical. He knows the codes inside and out and can apply them fairly, uniformly, and consistently. Christopher is invested in staying on top of changing codes and laws and makes sure he attends conferences, hearings, and meetings to stay informed. Another reference described Christopher as versatile. He's able to assess and align department goals with town goals. He was described as a great listener who looks for input from the team, and was also described as an educator who relates well to others and helps people understand why a code exists and can explain it to people in a way they can understand. The first round interview panel included John Gelsich, Principal Planner, Nicole Bratsos, Inspector of Construction, Utilities, and Engineering, Tim Healy, Fire Prevention Officer, Kelechi Obika, Health Services Agent, and Kristen Merrill, HR Generalist. The second round interview panel included Gary Doherty, Fire Chief, John Gelsich, Anna Rogers, Environmental and Inspectional Services Coordinator, Jessica Leverins, HR Director, and myself. So we're happy to recommend Christopher White for appointment.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you.
That was a great introduction by Elaine. Thank you for coming in this evening. We generally are trying to get away from live interviews like this, and we're going to be affirming things as we go. But Jessica, do you want to share a few thoughts about the candidate yourself?
We had 4 people apply, and 3 went to the first round and 2 to the second round. And I have to say, Christopher really stood out as an exceptional candidate, very well-rounded, has a very good demeanor about him. We felt like he would be a good fit for the department. He has a lot of experience to bring to the table, and we're looking forward to his community approach which, if I remember correctly, he said that when he sees a problem, his view is how do we support that person in reaching the goals that they're trying to reach, rather than just saying, these are the codes we have to follow, which we do, but how do we help that entity get to where they need to go to accomplish their goals? So that was impressive to me. So.
Great, thank you. Christopher, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself real quick? No need for any kind of prepared speech, please. Not that you have one in front of you.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what I could or should say other than to say thank you for this opportunity. If you see fit to, I'm going to continue forward with it, but this is a tremendous community. And as I did mention in the interview, that one of the great things that I've seen about this town is that there is a firm foothold in its history and also into the future. And I think that that's a testament to the type of people that live here, that they want to see something beautiful continued forward into the future, and who would not want to be a part of that.
Great, thank you for that. I appreciate that very much. Board members, any burning questions, because we're not interviewing, but any burning questions or any comments you would like to share? Mr. Manon, we'll go to you first.
No question. Welcome on board, and thank you for choosing Hopkinton. You have an awesome background. Love the resume.
Great, thank you. Ms. Lafreniere.
I just want to say, as an assessor, or having been a professional assessor, the importance of the job of building inspector. A lot of people do not realize what impact it has on the budget, on the town's incoming money, on the new growth figures. It's imperative that we have a good inspector who's out there all the time and gets those building permits to the right people in a timely manner. And I thank you very much for stepping forward to accept the position.
Mrs. Ritterbush.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I just want to say that it's an impressive list of ICC certifications that you have. I can't even fit them all on my screen at the same time. I have to scroll. So it was nice to hear from everyone, and we're looking forward to having you on staff.
Loved hearing about your approach to solving problems for our residents. Excuse me. I think that's the most important thing, right? Because how you interact with our residents is really kind of the most important thing here. You deal with them probably more than a lot of people in the town hall on a regular basis. So I love that approach and look forward to having you bring that to Hopkinton. Welcome.
As a fellow member in the construction industry, the inspector is a key player in that process, whether you're building a school, a solar array, or something else. Inspectors and their communication style and their willingness to do some of the things that Jessica mentioned, not do, but listen and facilitate and follow and find a path. That's a really important skill set to navigate along with the code itself. So it sounds like you're a great fit, and we welcome you to Hopkinton.
Thank you very much.
Great. So with that, I believe we have a motion for this appointment.
I move to confirm the town manager's appointment of Christopher McWhite as Director of Municipal Inspections.
Second?
We have a motion and a second, I believe, correct? Yep. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll start with Ms. Lafreniere.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Joe Clark, yes.
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Mr. Manon.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Brian Herr, yes. Welcome, Christopher. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming this evening. Thank you, Jessica.
A few minutes, I think Connor would like to administer the oath to me.
Okay, do you want to do it right here?
Yep.
Okay, Christopher, we're going to do the oath right here, I believe.
Just for my,
You're going to do
for my oath. Tell me that.
As town manager.
Oh, your oath.
So is,
Does he have to have an oath, too?
Later.
Okay, all right, well, let's do yours then. That'd be great. All right, because we are a little bit ahead of schedule here, so we'll
Connor's
do
here,
that.
so.
I think we should do that out here.
Yeah, probably should.
Hang on. Hang on. It's a modern world.
Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform the duties incumbent upon you as town manager for the town of Hopkinton in accordance with the charter and bylaws of the town of Hopkinton and the charter and the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? Congratulations.
All right. Now it's really official. Thank you, Connor.
You were just ignoring me when I messaged you about it.
That was a great idea. Well done. Okay. Item number 7, Police Department promotions. The Select Board will consider the recommendations of Police Chief Joseph Bennett to promote the following police officers to the rank of sergeant: Cody Normandin and Shannon Beloin. Did I say that correctly? Beloin.
And Chief Bennett is on Zoom. Yeah, here he comes.
Chief Bennett is on Zoom, and we have others here to join us. Scott Van Ralton is here, and we have our candidates. Okay, Chief, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just joined the meeting and starting my video.
Okay.
There it is. I'm in there twice.
There you are. Would you like to take the floor, Chief?
Sure. Through the chair, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to be here tonight. You're going to see 2 officers who I'm recommending to be promoted to sergeant after a rigorous promotional process. I think if you've met them, you'll know that they're both very smart. They're very well educated, and they represent the department and serve the community in an outstanding fashion. Shannon Beloin came to us from Providence Town. She started her career in September 2018, and Cody came to us straight out of Fitchburg State. Not only have they done exemplary work here within the department, but they also went and finished their coursework to get their master's degree while working with us. I believe Jessica's there with you to speak to any questions about the process. Her and Lieutenant Van Walton managed the process. I did my own evaluation, and they both did very well. So I'm proud to introduce you to Cody Normandin and Shannon Beloin as candidates, and I hope you'll affirm my recommendation for promotion to sergeant.
Great. Thank you, Chief, for the intro. Jessica, do you want to go first and describe the process a little bit for us, please?
Sure. In accordance with the promotional policy, the exam was posted on February 27th of this year. It was administered on May 31st, and 4 individuals took the test. 2 individuals proceeded to the interview process, which was, the interview was held on September 3rd with myself, Lieutenant Van Ralton, and Chief Newell from Southborough. Chief Bennett shared his evaluation scores for both individuals on 9-3 to me as per the process. I withheld the scores of the interview until after I received those. I shared them on the 4th with him to be able to compile a total final score for the 2 individuals.
Okay, great. Thank you. Scott, anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that it's a long process. The test is 100 questions. These individuals studied for 3 months in preparation for that test. That test only affords you an opportunity to interview. And in our contract, or in their contract, 40% is the test, 40% is the interview, and then 20% counts for the chief's assessment, which is essentially their background, their seniority, things of that nature. So between both of these candidates, I couldn't ask for anything more out of them. I'm very excited to see how they turn into sergeants and become leaders in our agency, and lead our younger officers that are coming on board in the very near future.
Okay. Do we have our other candidate with us? Would she like to join us, please, at the table here? Please feel free. So thank you for that, Scott. we're again moving away from kind of live interviews and going to the affirmation process. But I have a couple of business questions, so please don't read into my business questions. It's just normal stuff that I ask. And whenever we do something like this, especially when it comes to budget tonight. But Ms. Ritterbusch, any questions, comments that are burning?
Oh, I guess I was just going to say, it was explained to us in advance about the promotional policy and how it works now, because it's a little different than how we've done it other times when I've been on the board. So I just want to make sure that's going to be accessible to the public, too. I mean, they can hear Jessica explain it and everything here, too, but it'll be a change for the public, I think. But, yeah, but otherwise, we have the information in the packet, and we have the policy, and I was able to speak to Chief Bennett on the phone to ask other questions.
You good? Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Clark?
No questions. Congratulations to both of you. I know your work sometimes might feel like it goes unnoticed or underappreciated, but that is not the case with us at the Select Board. We appreciate what you guys do and what you do for the town. So on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lafreniere.
I read your resumes again, and you're both in town, 4 or 5 years now?
Correct.
And on the force, so you're very familiar with Hopkinton, and I think this is a great step for you.
Thank you.
You've been working hard for it.
Mr. Manon, any burning questions or comments?
No particular question. Thank you for your service and for keeping our town safe and providing all the great work that you are doing. We certainly support your work and your continued effort, and wish you all the best. I did speak to Chief Bennett, and you both have a great resume, and we talked about some of the areas specifically just to know. And as Jessica has explained and Amy has explained, we are going through the process, and I just want to congratulate you and thank you for your service. And we are here to support you any way we can.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll be back with you folks in one sec. Chief Bennett, the 2 positions are budgeted?
Yes.
Okay, and no issues with that for FY25 and going forward, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm good there.
Actually, through the chair, Chief, where are we now out of the 29 positions?
Sure. We have 4 in the academy, which brings us to 24. We have offers out to an additional 2, which gets us to 26.
Excellent. Thank you.
So back to the 2 candidates for sergeant. I wore as much blue tonight as I could possibly find in my closet. I have blue jeans on that are hidden behind the desk here. I think it's a great opportunity for the town to promote, and I'm excited that you 2 have earned this, and I know the town is as well. We are with you 110%, and I love seeing you guys out and about as I run on the corridor and inspect the corridor and pick up weeds on the corridor and everything else on the corridor. Really excited to have this promotion this evening, and you've earned it, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have a motion that we want to read with great enthusiasm.
Gladly.
Okay, I move to accept the recommendation of the police chief and promote Cody Normandin and Shannon Benoit to the rank of sergeant.
Second.
Seconded.
So we have Ms. Lafreniere, our motion, Mr. Manon's second. Sorry, he was a little faster on the draw. Any further questions or comments? Okay, we have to do a roll call because we have I'm sorry?
Oh, you left.
Sorry, I was just coughing. Shahidul Manan, yes.
Thank you.
Amy Ritterbusch, yes?
Joe Clark, yes?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes?
With great enthusiasm, Brian Herr, yes. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Scott, do you have the pins? Do you want to do that this evening?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do a pinning, and then we're going to do a picture when we get the pinnings completed. So if anybody wants to join for the pinning, please come on up. I know. So the cameras are over here. So we need you folks to kind of do it at a, that's sort of, there you go. Perfect. That's perfect.
I guess right here, yeah.
Even a little closer would be good through the chair.
We'll take a picture if you guys just wait.
Okay.
We got some pictures going here. That's great. Very well done. So Scott, can you join us for this pic, please? And Elaine, if we can get a photographer, that would be great. Yeah.
Would you like to take
Oh,
pictures?
sure.
Thanks.
Kylie, you're going to be the Thank you.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations, guys. See you out there. You're welcome.
Huh? Oh, yeah, it's nice up there.
Okay. Thank you all for coming this evening. It's always nice to do those sorts of things.
Through the chair, thank you.
Okay, Chief, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we are on to item number 8. We okay with moving ahead now, Lane, you think? Do we have everybody that we need for this?
There are some on Zoom, I think, too.
Probably some folks in the hallway, so why don't we give this a minute? I think, I see appropriations is here, capital improvements is here. Are there any school committee members out there, do we know? Or,
I don't see any yet.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Elaine, Mark Logan is on one of the financial committees, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Mark Logan could be livened up.
You can sit right there, over here, wherever you want.
Yeah, please join us wherever you can find a seat. Come on up. Come on. We've got,
So also on Zoom, is there a Mary Z on one of the financial committees? Mary Z? Donald Sutherland, I know, is on some committees, but I'm not sure if he's on. Okay, but not a financial committee. Okay.
come on in and join us up front, please. We got some seats. Don't be shy.
This is a team
You are. If anyone's going to present, they probably should be towards the front. Okay. So Elaine, do you want to introduce this item on the agenda for us, please, and explain why we have an entourage of highly skilled professionals and volunteers sitting in the room with us?
Yep, so the charter requires a couple of things. First is that the town manager gains consensus on the budget calendar before October 1st and post that calendar. So we've distributed that calendar for this evening. The other thing is, this is the time when we start talking about what the board's budget message might be. So we start talking about, you know, the overall town finances and planning this process and discussing when various things are going to happen. And on our budget calendar, we've noted October 1st as the date when the board will vote its budget message. So this allows for 2 meetings in advance of that for a discussion of all of the things that will go into that message. So we're starting that discussion this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Does anybody need to open a meeting or anything like that? Is everybody good as far as public meeting stuff goes? Everybody's all good? Everyone's good? Matt, you good?
We're ragtag, we're fine.
Okay. All right, so unbeknownst to me, and I'm off my game a little bit still in this new term, we had 10 minutes for this item, okay? Now, we all know that's not going to happen. But we've got a lot of other stuff in the meeting done already, so we've got some time here, so don't feel rushed. But if anyone's giving a PowerPoint presentation, it should be 5 minutes or less. Okay, so blow through those slides. I didn't see the number, like the bottom line number, when I looked at the slides earlier, so we'll come back to that. But welcome, everybody, and why don't we just go around the room and everyone introduce themselves real quick, so the residents at home, even if they may not get a camera shot on everybody, will know who is here. And we'll start with the gentleman hiding in the back corner over there.
Chris Masters, School Committee.
Great.
I'm Nancy Kavanaugh, I'm the chair of the school committee.
Carol Kavanaugh, Superintendent. Susan Rothamick, Assistant Superintendent for Finance.
Susan Stevenson, school committee.
Kyla McSweeney, School Committee.
Jamie Bronca, I'm the vice chair of the school committee.
Great.
Mike Eric Haley, and Appropriation Committee.
Mike.
Caroline Newell, Appropriation Committee.
Bill Flannery, Appropriation Committee.
Bill.
Jean Birchman, Appropriation Committee.
And Mike Manning, Appropriation Committee.
Dan Eversole, Capital Improvements Committee.
I defer to my member on digital.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Kisner, Chair, CIC.
And do we have anybody on Zoom for this?
We do have Mark Logan on Zoom.
I'm sorry?
Mark Logan.
Mark Logan. Mark, you out there?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, Mark Logan, Capital Improvements.
Great, good to see you. Did we miss anybody? We have a couple other folks in the back. Fire chief's here. Town clerk's here. Town council's here. Kyla?
Kyla LaPierre, CFO.
Okay, I think that's everybody. So, how shall we proceed?
Well, we could first talk about the budget calendar and make sure that everyone is okay with the way it's laid out in what was in the packet.
Has everyone had a chance to see the budget calendar? Okay, I think it's a fairly typical budget calendar, right?
Yes, it's our standard budget calendar. We're trying to, on the town's end, move up our process a little bit wherever possible.
Elaine, do you mind sharing the first 2 or 3 dates of the budget calendar? Don't read the whole thing, but just the next few kind of deadlines so the residents can get a feel for what's going to start here.
Following your budget message on October 1st, the CFO will distribute budget materials to town departments. And so people will start working on their budgets at that time. On November 1st, those budgets are due to the town manager. And then the select board will hold some listening sessions as we move forward into November.
Okay. Does anybody, do any of the committees, maybe we should check with each committee. Is everybody good with the budget calendar as laid out? Start with school committee. Okay. Capital improvements?
Yes.
Okay. Appropriations?
I believe so. We're good.
Okay. Any professional staff here that wants to chime in on the budget calendar? Everybody good? Okay, I think that covers all the teams, right? All right, great. Thank you for that. Anything else you want to share, Elaine, before I kind of go into a very short speech?
No, I think I've been working with Kyla on, setting forth, getting our numbers together for your information in the next month. And as you know, prepared their residence guide to the town's finances, has some background information. So we'll be working on preparing that information for you.
Great, thank you. Did everyone have a chance to see, read, or at least hear about the message that Kyla put forth at our last meeting about, what's coming at us in the next several years, and certainly, with the tax impact for the average house from $850,000 house going from 12.5 to 18.5? Everybody's aware of that, right? So I think that's a good place to start this discussion for FY26. We have, the town has decided on 2 separate occasions and 2, subsequent annual town meetings to invest in the community in a big way. We're building $190 million, give or take, of schools. That's ongoing like right now. Hopkins is already underway. I think Charleswood is underway too. So we've made those decisions as a community. Now we have to find a way to make it work. But going from 12.5 to 18.5 for the average home in Hopkinton is a significant number and will present some significant challenges for a lot of our residents. So anything and everything we do, in my view anyway, over the next couple of months as we get ready for next year's town meeting, we can never forget that fact, because there's a lot of pressure on the community as it is, for good reason. Great assets are coming, right? But we have to be crazy frugal like we've never been before to make this work. With that, Nancy, yes, Kyla.
Sorry, and I just want to, I looked back through the past issue or discussion papers from Tim O'Leary, the prior CFOs, and this has been a consistent message from 23 as well as 24, where he actually said the debt was going to increase 50 to 60%, and it's something that we need to be aware of. So I know last 2 weeks ago, the message might have been alarming, but it has been consistent year over year.
Great. So why don't we start with just that sort of baseline, and again, hit each committee if they want to touch on that topic. I'll start with Nancy. Do you have any thoughts on that, or anything you want to share?
I think that's something that we all as taxpayers are mindful of, and I think as a committee we try to come in where we can with what we need, not just what we'd like and what we think would be great, but what we really need for the students and for the schools in Hopkinton.
Great. It's a great mindset. Anybody else in the school committee want to share anything? Okay, capital improvements.
Just want to reinforce, we mentioned that 18.5, so about 500 a month, 50% growth number. I think it's important to reinforce to people that that number is reflective of no new additional capital spending and borrowing during the interim period. That's not a fun thing to say, and I don't like being the one to say it, but I do think that it needs to be said often and clearly and openly. That's the number now.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else from capital improvements want to share anything? Okay, appropriations, anything?
Yeah, I just want to make note that when we're talking about these increases, I looked at Tim O'Leary's model when he had done it before, that we have the tax impact from these capital projects being, I believe it's like $950 for one and $500 for the other over the life of over the next couple of years as they roll in. But getting up to that point is really just the, what is our operational budget going to be? A lot of the modeling said if we, and our growth, if we're at build out for legacy farms, so that new growth is going to go down, so we have to cover that in our operational budget. Plus we have, if we come in with, operational budget has to be 6%, 8%, or can we keep it at 3%? So it's potentially going to be 12,000 to 18,000. We have the ability by watching our operational budget to go under it. Okay. And we also have the ability to go over it if we don't. So that's the message that Appropriations Committee has been trying to say for the last couple of years, that we have to be very mindful of our operational budget from this point and watch what other projects, if we want to approve or not approve for the next couple of years till we get used to what we've just approved and we're going to be paying for in the next couple of years.
Okay, great.
I would like to say something, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
As a citizen, I know the school, without getting into a political argument, the schools drive a lot of the operating budget for the town. What I'm seeing and hearing is, I'm thinking about the fixed income older people that are going to be heavily taxed. How are they going to handle it? Are they going to be forced to sell and move out to go somewhere else? I know it's pride of us being a great school education, but sometimes I hate to see that if we build a new school and all this money and float the bonds, that if the students or the numbers don't materialize like it was said in our fiscal year discussion, then we've spent money and we could have empty rooms. So I just want to make that, as an engineer.
Got it. Great. Anyone else on appropriations?
Through the chair, I know in the past, there's been discussion, the town does own some assets. I'm not referring to the schools and things that we know that we're trying to figure out what to do with. I'm curious, is there a comprehensive list that's available of what kind of assets the town does own, and could that possibly be used to maybe help lessen some of the financial burden?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think that's certainly something we should look at, holistically as we go through this process. What can we sell to generate some cash to offset the expense of the debt service and everything else that's coming at us?
Could through the chair, because I got asked this last night too, but at Historic District Commission, but there was a nice presentation by the Permanent Building Committee about that sort of thing in one of our June meetings. So if you look that up, I think it was June 18th, does that sound right? So it was in our meeting packet. It was a really good presentation about facilities that we have existing and plans.
Okay. Anybody else from appropriations? I know I've been ignoring my colleagues here to get this thing rolling, but I'll come back to the board now. So any other thoughts, comments, Amy? Just kind of kicking it off?
No, just to echo what others have said, we really, when we were voting on the Charles Wood project and the Hopkins project, I think we all knew that these were the really big ones, that we were going to have to slow down our capital after this because, to make it work. So I hope everyone in town and all the departments know that we did those big expenses, but now we have to slow down a little.
Great, well said. Mr. Clark.
Nothing new. I really appreciate, the comment around the operating budget, how impactful that is. The decisions we make on that this fall will be just as impactful as what we do with the capital budget next year. So I certainly agree with you on that.
Mr. Frenner.
I just want to make a comment. I think the list of town assets is a good idea, but when I was an assessor, we had done that, and the state inhibited us with a law that said you can't sell an asset just for money. It has to replace it with another asset. So it's like, how are we got to get around them. Somehow are we got to negotiate with them or talk to them about what we're going to do if we sell an asset. What are we going to do with that money to make it another asset? It's a really complicated little issue there.
Wouldn't we be able to bring that into free cash, though, and then get that certified and then have it available the following fiscal year?
If you can sell it, if it's an asset that the state will allow us to sell for money.
I thought you were trying to sell DOR about how we were trying to do this.
No. The state says you can't just sell an asset for money. You have to sell it for another asset. So that's.
Well, if we sell a school, for example, we're building another school, I think we could make that argument, right?
Possibly.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not the state. I know I ran into that problem trying to sell an asset for a town. So.
I love the idea of getting into the asset piece.
I love it.
What we can do with it. We have not made any decisions to sell anything yet. Please don't anyone think we're selling everything off. Okay, Mr. Menon, are you out there still?
I am, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hear you fine.
Yeah. No, as I'm listening, certainly that's the very common theme. We all have, concerns how our taxes are raising, but at the same time, we want to make sure we have the quality of life that we enjoy and we want to see excel with our town, and our schools are our assets. So we want to keep a close eye on that. I think the bottom line is we need to have a laser beam focus on our budget, both CapEx and OpEx. And with all the things that we have done, we hopefully have to take a hard look as to how we are going to do our capital planning going forward. And maybe, we'll have to really go slow tightening our belt, at least for the next decade, and have very well thought out criteria, principles, and financial discipline among ourselves. And it seems like we are all aligned how we are going to manage this going forward for the betterment of the town, for the residents, and manage the burden of tax. And that said, it's not an easy task. We all understand that. And for that, we initiated this discussion, and I think we'll talk about it in the subsequent sessions, how we can come up with that common framework and a more quantitative, criteria-based, disciplined way of evaluating all of these as we get into the budget session. Last year, we had a great, discussion and very, I think, well thought out and smooth journey through our budget process. A lot of it is because we were upfront and had good discussions and found our ways to compromise on some of the asks. We'll continue to do that. But the biggest challenge, as we all know, is that we see so far the growth not slowing down as much. There are some, and then there's revenue impact too. But then also our contract negotiations and our various contract obligations. And how do we manage that within all these purview? So we at the same time have to keep our eye and mind open for new opportunities on economic development, on public-private partnership where we can. And these are just having some open mind and creative ways to look at those opportunities where we can have private or seek some private partnership to do some of the public works along with private interests. It's again more to come in the coming days, but I think the message is clear. We definitely want to have laser beam focus on all of these. And last thing on this is on the OpEx side also, we have been very, cognizant and well thought out in all of these, all the stakeholders here from CIC to appropriations to CFO and town administration, everyone here have spent, hundreds of hours dedicated time analyzing and projecting all of these for the good of the town, and I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed working with them throughout the years for a long time. But I think we need to also take a fresh look where we can, because this is a little bit of, a challenging time that we are entering through, looking at the numbers, looking at the forecast, as we have seen in the past, is that can we manage our risks a little more fine-tuned fashion? Can we manage our budget asks and budget prioritization early on a little more planned fashion? And we've discussed this, we'll discuss this more. I'm sure you all have heard me saying again and again, and I take every opportunity to repeat it just so it is in our head and mind, which is that we don't want our cash reserve of $3.5 million at the end of the budget. We would rather want to do a little bit of planned allocation, and I'm not saying it's, I know the reasons as well, it's not always in our control, how we can allocate it better upfront so we don't, dry the parts where we may need it to really continue the services and things of that sort. And also managing the risk. We don't want to compromise with the risk, but we also don't want to overmanage in a time like this. We don't have the, luxury to do some of that. And I'm not saying we're doing that. I'm just saying we need laser beam focus on many of the things that we have done. How can we tune it better going forward? And last thing on this is last year also we had a practice, and I see some of it reflected, but we can look at it, if we can look at it, is throughout the final December-January timeline, we had some touch points with school being our biggest partner in budget in some ways, town and school, to visit some of the gap areas or potential ask areas so we can align them way ahead of the town meeting. Last year, I think we had that yielding pretty good results. So timeline and touch point wise, sorry, I didn't fully look at all the touch points, but if we can embed a couple of those checkpoints, I think that would help. So I'll pause there, more to come, but thank you all for your help and contribution to this, and looking forward to our budget journey and doing the right things for our town.
Great, thank you. Elaine, let's talk about the working budget group or committee or whatever we've called that in the past. What is the plan for that for this coming year? How did that work in the last couple of years? And what would you all like to see happen this year for who's going to be in on the conversation and discussions?
So typically, it's the chair of appropriations, a member of the select board, and a member of the school committee. The budget advisory group is comprised with that, with the town manager and CFO.
And
it
on the liaison list, it's Shidul this year, right?
I believe so, yep. And so there's regular meetings. I've forgotten whether it's weekly or bi-weekly.
Sorry, can you just back up? Can you just give me the who's going to be on it again?
It's the budget advisory group, and it's the chair of appropriations, the select board liaison, and a member of the school committee chair,
Yeah.
and town manager and CFO.
Town manager, CFO, superintendent, and assistant superintendent for budget and operations, or what is, right? Is that close? Yeah. Susan. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are those open meeting discussions? Those are typically daytime, kind of like business meetings. Right?
They're daytime.
And there's not votes taken or anything like that?
No, it's updating, it's keeping people informed of what's going on.
Okay, so let's just make sure we're all on the same page with that. Is the school committee good with that group of people on the budget act? What is it? Budget what?
Budget advisory group.
Budget advisory group. You guys good with that?
That's the way we've done it for as long as I can remember. I don't see any.
Okay. You guys good with that? You guys good with that? Appropriate capital improvements, you good with that?
We were notably absent from that discussion. I would love to be part of it.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That's why we're doing this. You would like to be part of that budget advisory group?
Yes, I recognize we don't play the same role in shaping OpEx, but when CapEx and OpEx work together, we can be more informed and strategic.
Okay, your thoughts on that?
It's a great idea.
Does anybody want to ban CIC from joining that group? Okay.
I think it's a great addition.
All right, so you're not banned, that's great, you're on the island. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay, so you guys good with the budget advisory group? Everybody good there? Good there? You guys good with the budget advisory group makeup, adding CIC to it? I think it makes great sense, so thanks for speaking up. Are we all good with that group? Good. Amy, I missed what you were saying a minute ago about...
Oh, we picked the liaisons already, so Shidul's listed as the budget advisory group liaison.
Okay.
And I have often put myself down as an alternate because they are during the workday and occasionally they come up suddenly, and then if he can't go, then someone else should be able to go. Or it could be any of us.
Okay, great. Everybody good with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a big help.
So we have that group. That group will start to come together. Maybe we'll create some kind of email list, obviously, and get that rolling a little bit.
We'll schedule.
Names to the different...
We'll schedule those meetings.
Okay. All right, great. So the budget advisory group will get together, and the budget advisory group will meet on a regular basis, right? And they'll start chipping away at what everybody needs from all the departments, including the schools. And they'll start to build a recommendation that would come back to the select board. It would go back, obviously, to the school committee. It would go to appropriations, capital improvements, everything would be there. So then we can all kind of disseminate what we're hearing from the budget advisory group over the next several months. Right, that's how this is going to work.
That's how it'll work once we get some numbers going. And in the past, the group hasn't made necessarily recommendations, but it certainly could.
It's often an exchange of information, so that, for example, as we're going through our budgets for the schools, if there's something big that we can foresee, we try to bring it to the group and say, this is a concern we have versus something that, appropriations or CIC or the select board could bring information in the same way to try to make sure that all the boards stay connected.
Okay. I've been through this in the past. I've forgotten all that I've been through, so I'm a little rusty around it. But I know that when we work together as a team and we talk, which that requires meeting together and regular interaction, it goes pretty well. When we don't, it can get a little dicey because I've been through a couple of those as well way back when. So the more we do stuff like this, and the more the budget advisory group communicates with each other and then communicates back to the individual boards and committees, I think the better off we'll be. So let's all keep talking, and we're all in it for one reason, to advance Hopkinton moving forward. That's it. Nothing, no other thing, but move Hopkinton forward as best we can. I think that's the job. Okay, so I know that the school committee put together some introductory information to share with us this evening. I think it would be great if we could go through that quickly, because we're not obviously making any decisions tonight. I don't think there's a ton of detail in there, but it's good to get all of us level set as to what we're looking at from a school perspective. They're a major driver of the budget, obviously. And all the other departments in town will also have an opportunity to give us their feedback and their ideas. And this won't be the last time the schools present to us or to the budget advisory group, but it's a good way to kind of kick off this discussion, I think. So if you guys are ready to do that, and we can get that onto the screen, that'll be great.
Yes, I think someone has our slides too.
I think we should slide a microphone over, though, Kyla or Matt or somebody. Yeah. We'll do that. Great. I was kind of half joking about the 5 minutes.
We presumed you were not really joking.
They want to cut it in half.
All right, as you said, we want to just give you a little snapshot of where we perceive our budget to be heading. We like to always include for you, next slide please, the historical increases, so you can see where we've been at 6.63, 6.6, 5.4, 2.88, 7.9, 5.35. And one of the things I hope that illustrates is with the variation, we really do ask for what we need. So this year we anticipate that there will be 3 major budget drivers: student enrollment increases, special education needs, and fulfilling all of our contractual obligations. Next slide, please. So we'll start with enrollment. What you see on the screen are the numbers from our demographer, Dr. Arthur Wagman. In the 24-25 school year, Dr. Wagman predicts that we will be at 4,290 students by the end of the year. Today, we're at 4,234. And so you can see we're about 56 students away. We are building a budget currently for 4,355 students, which is the projected enrollment for June of 2026. So when you see our FY26 budget, that's the number we're working with. We like to show you this slide because it shows you the school year and what the projected budget enrollment was. Next slide, please. And then it shows you the actual enrollment according to the October SIMS, and then the end of year actual. And if you go down that last column that shows you the end of year actual, you will see that in every year except for the year of the pandemic, we had more students than what was projected at the beginning of the year. So for example, in 18-19, the projected enrollment was 3,557. At the end of the school year, we had 3,741. And even though that gap might close a little bit, we typically end up with more than we thought we would have. Next slide, please. So if we have a September enrollment of 4,246 and a projected enrollment in June of 2026 of 4,355, the difference is about 110 students. When we calculate how many FTEs we're going to need, we batch our kids in groups of 20 because we say that every 20 students needs about 1.4 teachers. And so when we take our 110, we have 5.5 groups of 20. We take our 5.5 groups, multiply it times the 1.4, and we have about 7.7 FTEs, or 7.7 new teachers, that we anticipate needing to hire just based on student enrollment alone. The dollar value on that is about $577,500, and we do it that way because we just budget about $75,000 for each new teacher. Next slide, please. And so then we can take a look at special education. Next slide, those numbers are also growing. So if you take a look at the slide I have up there now, this is provided by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. In 2020, we had 3,893 students, according to DESE. In 2024, 5 years later, 4,223. In terms of students with disabilities, the percentage of students in our district was at 12.2 in 2020, and it's at 14.2 today, which is still actually a very low percentage if you look statewide.
So we have had an increase of 330 students in those 5 years, and we've had an increase in about 2% of the kids on IEPs. So if we go to the next slide, you can see what's happened when we hadn't been adding staff to cover the students who had different needs in our public schools. So in 2019, we had about 10 FTEs for every 100 kids with an IEP or with a diagnosed disability. So if you're doing the math, one teacher would be responsible for 10 students. Over time, that dipped to 7.3, and that became an unacceptable and really unwieldy number. In the previous slide, Desi went all the way to 2024. The most recent data we can harvest right now only takes us to 2023 in this domain, in the radar domain that they offered to us. So we're going to see where that gets us when we added 3 new special educators in FY25. So that 7.3 should come up. But we always anticipate special education costs because there are programmatic needs, and individual kid's IEP dictates what we need in terms of staffing and programs. So we just want to put that out there, as special education will in fact be a need as always. And then on the next slide, you can see that we have the special education stabilization count, which we have funded historically at $1,094,000. When you look at the rates of inflation and you look at the increases in numbers of students, while we are very grateful for that number, it has less buying power when we have more students and more inflation. But we are anticipating needing that as well, because we still have many students who are educated outside of the school district. When we look at our contractual obligations, this is going to be a very tricky year for that, because this is a year where we are negotiating with our custodians, with our teachers, and with our nurses. We just finished our negotiations with paraprofessionals, so they have a brand new contract this year. So one thing that we should note is that in addition to whatever the % increase is for all of those bargaining units, teachers also are entitled to something called steps and lanes, meaning every year of service is another step for them until they get on the top step. And if a teacher, for example, is moving from having a master's degree to 15 credits beyond a master's degree, a teacher would also move a lane. So we have to be aware that they have a cost of living or a % increase, however you want to call that, and then also step and lane increase. When we looked at the salary increase alone for the operating budget in FY25, it was 2.5%. But when we took the contractual obligations, all of the contracts for FY25, it was 3.07%, and that's just contractual obligations. So it doesn't count things like, turning on the lights. When we say how much is 1% worth in terms of the whole operating budget, it's about $631,000 is 1% of the budget. One thing that we know absolutely positively for sure you're going to see is you will see 3.0 FTE special education paraprofessionals, because just based on student need from the start of school till today, we've had to add 3 paraprofessionals to our ranks. All right, so where does this leave us? We promised you, as always, that we are going to ask all of our building principals and our directors to have data to support whatever they are asking for. When they do that, they need to be considering the needs of all of the children of Hopkinton, and they need to focus on the things that are need to haves, not nice to haves. And we are very serious, and each year we try to publish for you a list of things that folks had asked for that didn't quite make it into the budget because they didn't either have the data or they didn't have need to have sort of status according to sort of our view on things. So in addition to the 3.0 special education paraprofessionals, I'm sure you'll be seeing increased teacher staffing at 7.7. You'll probably also see other special education asks. We are trying now to grow incrementally the administrative team. We have about 800 more students here today from the time I started, and we have added only an assistant principal in terms of building level administration. So it's getting very hard on our building principals and assistant principals to monitor the numbers of kids we have doing that job kind of independently, which they've been doing for a number of years. And then, of course, the contractual obligations, which are both salary and other contracts, for example, school bus contract or other things that. This will be the last slide that I show you, and I show it to you all the time. This is our per pupil expenditure. Prior to this meeting, the school committee met, and we were looking at the per pupil expenditure for the town of Weston, which spends about $30,000 a year on their kids. We're spending somewhere just under $16,000. But you can see, and I think that this is something in some ways to celebrate, but it's also something to say thank you to our teachers and our administrators and our paraprofessionals, custodians, everyone who works with our kids, because we are getting very good scores in the Hopkinton Public Schools and providing a very high level of education. And when you look at this slide, we are in the bottom in terms of funding, the bottom 25% if you have a red circle, the bottom 50% if there's a blue circle. And the singular green circle that came from FY21 is that something that was in the top 30% that year. Professional development was in the top 30%. So I've gone a long way to say, in terms of per pupil expenditure, we get a lot of great education for a very, very good price. And so I thank you for giving us the time to share with you our anticipated needs, and we're happy to take any questions.
So tonight is not to dissect that proposed, those concepts and those issues so much. A couple of thoughts real quick, though. Hopkinton has been in the mid-teens per pupil for a long time. We've always been very low at the state level per pupil spending for a long time. That's great. That's called ROI, right? So we get great scores, great kids, great whatever. All the kids, the things that the kids are accomplishing through the teachers and the administration. But we've always been in the mid-teens. So it's not a per pupil spending expansion. It's a growth expansion, is I guess what I'm getting to here. It's the sheer number of students and the growth in the town that's driving this thing up year over year over year. So second thing I would say, as you talk to the administration in each of the buildings, if you would please share the average household tax bill today and the average household tax bill 5 years from now, which is already baked, just so they understand. They may not live in town, they may not hear some of that stuff. Make sure they understand that our residents are going from 12.5 to 18.5 for an $850,000 house. That's already baked, right? So please let them know that so they understand what we're all gonna have to deal with here, and there's nobody saying, what are you talking about? There's plenty of money in this town. There is plenty of money in this town that's gonna be spent to build the great buildings that we're gonna build. So I just wanna make sure everybody understands in the budget process, and those folks you mentioned are key to this whole thing because they're the ones that are gonna start at the bottom, build their budget up, what they need. Does anybody have any burning questions or comments around what the schools have just shared with us? Anything? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I'm curious, the return on investment is really amazing. It's a wonderful number. But does it add burden to our teachers and their ability to do their jobs? Do we see how long on average do teachers stay with the district? Does it result in them moving to different positions before we would expect them?
We actually do have a very high retention rate, but I think that maybe the best answer to your question is that we have a lot of teacher loyalty. Our teachers feel very passionate about Hopkinton, about the students in Hopkinton, and about their work here. And I do think that they give without hesitation. So.
As a new parent in the school system, I do see that with a lot of teachers.
Yes.
So it is really amazing to see. And, so it's really a lot of congratulations to get to that.
Great, thanks for that question. Anybody else, any other burning questions for this evening? Mike?
I did have one. The increase in teachers at the, I think it was 570 or 677,000. When these teachers come aboard, is that based on current contractual negotiations, or is that figure going to go up when they do have another contract redo?
So when we budget, we estimate that we'll start a teacher at about $75,000, but they really get placed on the salary schedule based on the experience they bring with them and what degree status they have. So if they have a master's degree with 5 years of experience, they would be master's step 5, and whatever that dollar amount is what they would be paid. When we negotiate a successor agreement, all of those numbers will change. So whatever the percent increase is, all of the numbers in the salary schedule go up accordingly.
So is that figure based on future contracts, or is the current contracts when these teachers come aboard?
That $75,000 is really just kind of a guesstimate at kind of what the average You might hire someone with lots of experience, you might hire someone brand new out of high school, out of college. So what we do is we just say, maybe 75,000 is a good estimate.
Benchmark in the middle. Anything else?
Through the chair, just, if you could just let us know briefly, not going into detail. I'm more curious about the special education student.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, we need a microphone slide over there, please. There you go.
Yeah, I can use this one. All right. Sorry. I'm Caroline, the Appropriation Committee. The question is, I would like some insight into the increase, the percentage increase on these special ed students. Not sure like what's causing the consistent increase, like from 12% to 13 to 14. Are we looking out into even more, go beyond maybe 20%? Like it's just kind of like not so, I don't know what's causing this. Is the assessment changed, or is it because more students with disability moving in, or why is that as students graduate, leaving the district, we're still seeing this trend? How do we prepare for this? Are we going to hire more, like every year, special ed teachers?
It's entirely based on student need, and so what happens is there's a series of testing, and if a student qualifies for special education, we are required to give them whatever special education services are deemed necessary for that student to succeed. And so can we pinpoint, exactly what's causing that 2%? I don't think that we can pinpoint exactly what's causing the 2%. I think if you look at and you can look at this on the DESE website, if you look statewide at what special education percentages are across the Commonwealth, 14 is a pretty low number, actually. I know it feels like it's getting bigger, but it's actually a very small percentage.
Okay. Any other burning questions? The chief here, I shouldn't be saying burning. To the board level, anybody have any questions they really got to get out tonight or ask right now about
I just
the
had
presentation?
a quick ask if you could email us the presentation afterwards, because I know we hear all the talk in the community, and if we have the numbers, it's easier for us to explain things.
Sure thing, Amy.
Okay, everybody good?
Yep.
All right, so Elaine, do we owe you anything else this evening?
No.
Does this crowd owe you anything else this evening?
No, but we look forward to continued discussion.
Okay, and the budget message, which is a formal part of the process per the charter, that's due on October 1.
That's when the board is scheduled to do that, yes.
Okay, so that's the next big step, is the budget message that'll come out, and I think you can kind of figure out what it's going to be, so. Okay, great. With that, we'll move off this agenda item. Thank you all for coming this evening. I hope everybody had a chance to participate as they hoped, and we'll keep the dialogue going.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, I want to move us around a little bit. We have, I think we should do the redactions policy, item number 10 next. Silly question. And then we'll come back to the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. Brian Bertram is here to discuss the redactions policy with the board, but I'll turn it over to Elaine to introduce it.
The board reviewed the draft redactions policy at a previous meeting and requested a couple of edits, and those have been accomplished in this draft, including at the end a procedures flow chart.
Flow chart is in there,
Yes.
I saw that. Okay.
One of the edits I mentioned I didn't see was it the definition of what would be a sensitive record versus not
I believe it's in the text.
in the text.
Okay, Brian, you want to grab a mic and do you want to walk us through kind of from last we spoke about this, any adjustments, changes you've made to the proposed redactions policy?
Sure, and just to Ms. Ritterbusch's question, if you go to the top of page 3, it's defined in the text. I did take the opportunity in this draft to bold text, define terms, so they're a little easier to pick out of the draft. But it is in there.
Let me just find it.
No worries. The top of page 3.
Okay.
And if it's helpful, we can, as we're talking about this now, I know, we want to wrap this up, but we can always add something, even if you approve it, would be maybe at the end, we could do a table with just the defined terms, and then that way someone could locate those definitions easily.
Yeah, it's not exactly as specific as I was hoping. I guess some people, we wouldn't do this, but people could think that we were using this policy to hide things that we should not be able to hide, that should be transparent. So defining sensitive as being, crimes and things like that, or exactly what it is, I think would be helpful for the public trust, but otherwise I think the policy is good.
Well, that makes sense. I think we would define it by a exhaustive list of examples, just because I wouldn't want to guess at every potential sensitive situation we could have. You never know what you're going to come across, but we could certainly enhance the definition with, examples that sort of give you the idea of what this is supposed to be without, making somebody think, well, if it's not in the list, then it's not a sensitive record. That's the real danger to me.
I wouldn't want people to think that we were hiding things that might be embarrassing because we were calling them sensitive. So I just want to make sure.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So just to get back to the chair's original question, I think probably one of the biggest things that we did at the suggestion of Mr. Manon was to create a procedures flow chart, which there is a lot in this policy. So I really sort of like flow charts to be on one page. When people start flipping pages, it's hard to follow those. So I managed to get it in there. It is a little bit dense. It was unavoidable, but the goal is that somebody can just step through this and sort of see exactly what sort of the basic process is, which is the blue on the left, and then there's sort of call outs when you get to sensitive records and notes where people should be thinking about things as they go through this process. I know another comment that we had in the last session was training, and so I added a section at the end of this policy that addresses that. I did want to give it a little bit of flexibility. Certainly we should have people who go through a training, with my office or with whomever else the town manager deems appropriate. But, as we really get into this over the long haul, there'll probably be times where someone who's done the redaction process many times and has sort of a non-sensitive record set could probably train a lower level employee to do a first pass. I think with some of these things, we need to get into it and we need to take it slow to start with and sort of figure out how we settle into the actual processes, the people, how they implement the policy that we've written here. But those are the two, those are the biggest changes from the last version. I don't think there were any other directions to change it, but I fully recognize that, every time you go through something and when you enhance it, it's quite likely that you'll see something else that should be added. And so I certainly welcome tonight any further suggestions and enhancements.
Yeah, whatever we were to put in place, that doesn't mean that's it and we're done, adjusting. We can always.
Exactly.
Mr. Clark.
Yeah, kind of with that in mind, I did not think this was something like, oh, we'd be approving this tonight. We just kind of started this conversation in that last meeting. What was it, a couple weeks ago? So, while I've been thinking about this in between, a couple things came to mind. Like one, kind of, I think we talked about it, but we never really put it into motion was, redaction softwares. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to, there's way too much technology out there, and I think we need to figure out how to incorporate that because, I do think I look at the flow chart. Flow chart looks great, by the way. Leaves room for human error, right? This is what we talked about from the start. So if we're doing this process after a software is coming in and being applied, that gives me a lot more confidence in the process. I'd love to know, and then really kind of the only other thing is, I'd love to just know what our neighboring towns have for their policies. Is this in line? Did we look at, and Brian, maybe you looked at that as putting this together. I'm sure it's not something that's standard for every town. We obviously didn't have one, but I'd love to know if there is some sense of consistency.
I certainly looked around and I can continue looking. I'm not aware of another town that has a redaction policy. I think you guys may end up being the leaders on this. So I will look more. I certainly, sort of did searches just in other contexts, right? Like, it's not just municipal government that has redaction policies. I went out and looked at business, other levels of government, to try to inform this, to make sure that I'm not missing any best practices. But I was a little surprised too, actually. I didn't see anything from another municipality.
Yeah, no, I didn't think, there's obviously nothing apparent missing, but just figured, if we had peers that went through this or towns that had issues and put something in place. But for me, the biggest thing would be, how do we incorporate a software? Some type of program to do
And
it.
I think this should reflect how that software would get worked into the process, right? So let's think that through a little bit.
Sure. It's a conversation I can have with IT as well, because they're going to have to, I'm just a lawyer. I need to work with IT.
Yeah, no, Elaine, I think didn't you say you'd done some research on this in the past, or someone from town did?
You looked at some records management software and still are looking at those.
Yeah, because I feel like that, to your point, Brian, that would change the flow chart. Just by nature of incorporating that. So, yeah, so as is, again, realizing kind of late that we were looking for a motion tonight, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable with a motion, knowing that this is very likely to change. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I don't mind waiting another week either, but I was going to say, to get the software would be expensive, so that wouldn't happen probably till the next year budget. So I don't know if we might need to, maybe not tonight, approve a preliminary policy until software can be purchased.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I mean, it may make sense to schedule it again in a couple of weeks. I can have discussions with IT, and we can at least do some due diligence on, the cost range of what that might be. Both for, I think there's been sort of almost two different types of technologies discussed here. One being the artificial intelligence to actually go through the records and provide AI assistance in actually redacting the documents. And then the other one was a more formalized management system that would keep track of records requests and just, sort of put bones to, as these things come in, keeping track of it and applying the actual specifics of the policy.
Yeah. Through the chair, just to add, I think, definitely, I have been also an advocate for applying and finding the right NLP AI-driven software. Now it's an emerging technology, and there are a lot of progress that's happening, especially in the legal sector. But I kind of think, and I don't have any problem delaying it to kind of review and come back with some more research work on that. But I do think that that may require time for evaluation and time for testing and then budgeting and all those. So we may add that as a provision to keep the room for that, but wouldn't hurt probably in our next session. We can review that and discuss that and have this policy with further review if necessary. I think it looks good for the most part that I've seen, kind of institutionalize this for now so we can get the ball rolling while we are doing it. And I do see that it's going to be a living document, because in the next couple of years there will be tremendous progress in AI space too, and we may be able to fully automate it in the next couple of years too. But I think it's worth checking what we can do now, but also have something get the ball rolling in the next couple of sessions.
Okay, thank you. Mary Jo?
I like the flow chart, and I like the way we're headed. I know we're not there yet, and I do agree that I think we are going to be the pioneer community as far as this goes and this kind of operation goes. I mean, I've been in municipal government in a number of communities for years, and nothing like this have I seen anywhere. And it's an unusual situation, and I think it's too bad that communities don't do more about it until they get hit with it like we did, and they're going to be looking to us. So I want to do this slowly, carefully, and exactly right.
Mr. Deegan, Town Clerk.
Connor Deegan, Town Clerk. Through the chair, I was just wanted to have a chance to remark on some of the conversation around software. I had done a lot of looking into different vendors who provide different types of software in regards to looking at redactions, managing records requests. A lot of different communities use a few different vendors, and I've managed to talk with a bunch of other clerks about who they use and their experiences with them. I know I've talked with Elaine a little bit, which I know she and Brian mentioned at the last meeting, some of the vendors that we've been looking at, a few different vendors with different softwares. And they have been, I have one at least that was kind of a top contender. I know we had talked with the police chief about their vendor was, I think, recommended by the Chiefs Association as well as someone who would be a good use, because you can do different types of redaction, as well as they, I think, are working on redaction software for body cameras and things like that as well. Different things that are kind of new for us to be able to handle. And this allows us to control the workflow, to allow us to flag it so that council can review it when needed, and then also make sure that RAOs, record access officers for different departments, are in charge of making sure that it gets from the initial request through the process with records custodians, and then finally to the resident or entity who has requested that record. I know there are some that are willing to work with us on, finding ways to fund it creatively to make sure that we can actually do so with kind of the tight budget stuff that we're working with. And I'm willing to work more so with the board and the town manager's office to ensure that we can potentially have some options that might help us make this more efficient going forward.
It seems, go ahead.
Just a question for him. So to clarify though, and I appreciate that, Connor, that was kind of more of a comprehensive one that did both records management, redaction. We had a lot of other potential uses that we probably don't need today, but could in the future, right?
Yes. So there are some that are, combined. There are a lot of it. This is primarily, most of these are specifically around handling different volumes of records requests, which the town itself handles quite a few records requests on, a monthly basis. Different departments have some more than others. Some go with ebbs and flows, but a lot of departments handle quite a few requests just every month. This would allow for that to be better managed, and also to eliminate the redundancy of sending out the same document multiple times, when it would allow, if someone starts entering in a form saying they want X, Y, and Z, it will autofill, and is this one of the documents you're looking for? It has already been redacted by a previous records request, and it's available for public viewing. It also allows us to flag certain records as only available for the requester based on its current redaction level.
What was the name of that software? Do you remember?
That one was Request FOIA, I think it was. It's there's like 3 major ones that operate in Massachusetts.
No, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, it seems we have a couple of other things we might want to consider and have a look at. So not a huge rush at the moment. I don't think there's a massive redactions task in front of us today as a community that I'm aware of anyway. So with that, maybe we could table this item again for another future meeting, maybe either the next one or the one thereafter, maybe early October. We want to get this, it won't be done. It's always going to be a live document. But we want to get as much incorporated here initially as we can. And that'll give you a little bit of time too, so that there's not a huge rush. But I think this idea about getting into the software and how that can all play in would be very helpful.
Yep. There's not a huge rush, but we're in it and we should get it done. That's, we have momentum.
Love to get stuff.
And for the next step, through the chair, one thing to clarify, we want to add the provision of software selection and possible inclusion in this process for augmenting the capability of elimination of error. So I think something of that sort we I mean, we all are aligned. We should be including this in. I'm just trying to separate out the policy and the execution or operational aspect of things. So I don't think in the next 2 weeks we need to, or next 2 sessions, we need to, or we would be able to identify the software. But from a policy perspective, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the suggestion is we should include the software provision and have it included with in a proper evaluation and when and where we can have it available. But in the meantime, say the software process would take 6 months or 1 year. We don't want to live without the policy for that long. Just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Let's work it in. If it's not readily available, then that's another step in the process. But we want to get this policy, understood and circulated. So, yep. Okay, thank you for that. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and table this for now. Everybody's good with that? Elaine, you good with that? Brian, you good with that? Good. And we'll revisit here very soon. Okay, let's move to item number 9 on the agenda, the Water and Sewer Advisory Board. In the packet, there was a document that's been kind of worked over a couple of times now, I believe. It's a 2-page doc that spells out the Water and Sewer Advisory Board charge and provides the purpose, the charge, the composition, open meeting laws and things of that nature as part of the process and expectation. Elaine, do you want to speak to this real quick and sort of what we've done so far to get it to this point?
Yes, this is a draft for the board to review, taking into account the things that have been said by members at your meetings and other, just ways that this board could be organized and members appointed. A lot of it is standard, the way we appoint all boards and committees. But what's unique to this one is what they're charged with doing, which is probably something that the board wants to review in greater detail.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we start with Mr. Menon on this one? He's put a lot of energy into this over his time on the boards. Mr. Menon, if you want to speak to the doc that's in front of us.
Thank you. I think, obviously, Elaine put in a lot of effort in putting this. Thank you for that. And I like what I'm seeing, Elaine. I think this has formed up well, and I like the inclusion of the PFAS and our specific regarding some of the overall structure and the charge. That makes total sense. I am looking for, and sorry, I am a bit under the weather, so I may have missed it. Did we include the pricing and financial aspect as well? That's one.
In the purpose, it talks about the finances of the water and sewer enterprise funds in the general sense as one of the things that they'll be looking at.
Thank you. So one thing for the board and my colleagues to consider is, do we want to add, pricing recommendation or evaluation and advice? Because that's something I think we are charged to do as a board, and we always seek advice. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. And then the second one is, I like the standard structure and all. What would be kind of the structure for the representation from various bodies within the town that may have interest, or do we need that? Again, I want to balance it that we don't overload it, so it has quorum challenges or consensus challenges, or just too big. But something along those lines, we may want to incorporate or think through. But otherwise, I like the structure, I like the charge. I think it covers broader vision and the goal that we have talked about. So thank you, I like it a lot.
Let me just read this one sentence. Maybe this will help clarify a little bit here. The purpose of the Water and Sewer Advisory Board is to advise the Select Board, Town Manager, and Director of Public Works on the following. 1, policy matters involving the municipal water and sewer systems. 2, the finances of the water and sewer enterprise funds. So that would be that rates and things of that nature balanced out with costs and so forth. Regional water and sewer system matters and opportunities, AKA MWRA. issues pertaining to contaminants, PFAS, health concerns, and the like that affect the municipal water supply or sewer system. So that would be like the 4 key elements that we would go after with this group, or this group would kind of lead the charge on and report to us and the town manager and the director of public works, you know, their findings. And then specific to the composition, I think the comment, Mr. Menon, was on the composition. You know, the Water and Sewer Advisory Board shall consist of 5 members who are Hopkinton residents and appointed by the Select Board. Initial members shall be appointed to 1-, 2-, and 3-year terms to achieve staggered terms, and all members appointed thereafter will serve 3-year terms. No member may serve more than 3 consecutive terms. That's kind of a new one on me. I'm okay with that. I think it's a great idea, but we don't typically do that, do we?
We have one other committee, so the TCMC, the Trail Committee, has that in their charge as well.
Cultural Council, too. The Cultural Council.
Oh, the Cultural Council, it's under the state statute.
And then it goes on to say, all members shall be familiar with state and federal regulatory framework for municipal water and sewer systems, including state permitting. The membership shall include 1, residents with environmental science, civil engineering, or public health background and experience. 2, residents with experience in the water and/or sewer utility or public works fields. Does that address some of the thoughts that you were having there, Mr. Menon?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I think those are pretty well covered and structured. One thought was, how do we manage the kind of representation for, say, Planning Board or Sustainable Green or Select Board? Select Board, I think, will be involved. Of course, it's advising Select Board. Is that, is that necessary, or would that add too much burden on the size? Or B, should we think of adding any specifics on that regard? That was one detail, and I don't have a strong position on that. I think we want to make it effective, transparent, and be able to work with all the key stakeholders, and they will accordingly. So that was the thought.
Anybody have any thoughts on that particular comment?
I think composition as is kind of, I prefer that. You start getting in all the other boards and it's like, well, you know, why don't we have a seat? Or, you know, I don't know. I like the current composition. I'd rather keep that as opposed to opening it up. And then to Mr. Menon's point, they can go work with all these other boards and committees, right? Like, so I think we leave it as is.
Anybody else? All right, Joe? What's that? Amy?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I had quite a bit of difficulties with the former Water and Sewer Board, and I have high hopes that this will be a different board.
Okay. Amy, on Mr. Menon's comment about pulling others in from other boards?
I don't have anything to say on that. I do have other comments when it's my turn.
My thought on the other boards, and I certainly understand, you know, making sure we're connecting to these other boards and committees, but I think the work of this advisory board could be substantial, and if they're on the planning board and they're on this, or if they're on historical and they're on this, I mean, it's just, I think we need 5 folks that can focus on this and not get distracted and not have meeting conflicts and, you know, stress at home because they're always at a meeting, that kind of thing. So that's my take on it anyway. Elaine, do you have a thought on, you know, the composition and whether they should be from other boards or not?
You know, I agree with you that forming this, you know, the specialty group based on their experience and their background makes sense. And it is difficult to schedule meetings and to have the workload when you're bringing in people from other boards and may already be oversubscribed.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Menon, you didn't have a real strong feeling on that, so I think you're okay leaving it as is?
I am, yeah. That all makes sense. That's what I was thinking, but I wanted to point that out. And one last item, just to clarify, Elaine, all members shall be familiar with all those. That's great. I think we want that. Should we keep an option if we don't find anyone who's willing to, you know, have some of the backgrounds but not fully acclimated and willing to be trained or familiar, to have that in consideration? Maybe it's minutiae, it's probably implied, but just wanted to also point that out. And that would be my last one, I promise, and let everyone else speak.
I think if we don't find people, if people don't volunteer, then the board would revisit the charge, I'm assuming.
Okay, fair enough. Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Thank you.
Yep, I had a few comments. I'm hesitant about this committee in general, but we did have a water and sewer board a long time ago, I think when I first moved here. But I looked back at some old town reports and I couldn't find a reference to when we ended doing
It
that.
was quite a while ago.
So more than
In the 2000s?
I looked back to
was on the board when it was ended.
Okay, I looked back to 2004 and couldn't find it, but okay, so it must have been around that time.
Yeah, I got first like 2007, so.
Okay. And then, so I just kind of wonder why bring it back when we've already moved forward. Now we have the select board or the water and sewer commissioners. I wondered if this is supported by the DPW director and the water superintendent. Do they feel this will help them with their work, or will it impede and slow down their work?
I think there are some concerns there, but I think it's intended to be a support and a help, and I think that's the way it's worded, both to the board and to the staff.
Okay. And then
Nobody will report to this advisory board.
I saw that in the charge, but then I'm kind of like, well, what is the point of it?
The advisory board does not have any employees. That's not going to change.
But she brings up a good point because, it says, the one thing I didn't like was make recommendations to the select board's fine, right? Like, we asked for this, we thought it was important for us, but the DPW may not feel that way. And I feel like we should get their input on that specifically, because if they might want to be part of this, right? As opposed to just residents, but we should hear them out on what they think over there.
And then,
I see where it says, make recommendations, select board, of town manager, and DPW works on policy matters and including capital planning and expansion or extension of the water sewer system.
Yep, that's exactly the
Make
one.
recommendations, select board, of town manager, and director of public works on the proposed expansion or extension of water. I think there's some references to that here. Is that?
That's what I'm calling out, because I think we don't know how the DPW feels about that, them getting recommendation from them. We want the recommendations, right? Because we're getting recommendations from the DPW. This is kind of a separate focus board. So them making recommendations to the DPW might become a burden for them.
I get what you're saying. So it
Does that
should all
make sense?
flow through us.
Well-
The DPW reports to the town manager, correct? The town manager reports to the select board. So it should all flow through us, and then she can take it off to the DPW if she wants to. How's that? So we
Yeah, I'm fine.
scratch
I just want to take the board away from the DPW, like the DPW out of that part, so that they're not going to the DPW with the
Are you okay
recommendations.
with that?
Yeah, I had put it in there because I didn't want them to be left out, but, we could make it work so that they're not left out, that
And
they're,
also talk to them and see what they would prefer, but it's just, before we finalize this, I think that's one thing that we need to make sure we're all on the same page. Not adding a burden, keeping a separate, like, specific focus that we wanted, right? Without burdening, like, our departments that we.
Yeah, I don't want them all of a sudden have to go to all these meetings with these guys.
Yeah.
and not fix our clean water issue.
Right, and all of a sudden they don't get to extract all this government support from the DPW for their committee, right? Like it should flow, because this committee reports to the select board.
Correct.
And the DPW reports to the town manager, who reports to the select board. So ultimately it should all flow through here or the town manager's office.
Yeah.
So how do we clean that up, Elaine, and maybe talk to Carrie about that?
And I had a few other comments too, if
No,
that's okay.
we'll come back to this.
Okay.
Let's wrap this one up first.
yeah, if you're considering removing DPW, I can ask what they would like to have in there as a formal,
It's not to exclude them, we're trying to help them not get 5 more bosses.
Yep.
Right? That's what we're trying to do here, right?
and they don't have to attend the meetings. I mean, I wanted to make that clear.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah, I
talk to
think
her
that-
about that. Amy, you had some other thoughts.
Yeah, the part I like about it, the component would be public outreach, and I thought the forum that Shaidul did with staff in the spring was really helpful about the whole PFAS issue and really comprehensive and helped communicate to the public, and those slides are available on the website, the whole scope of the problem. So I like that this group could do some public outreach and explain it to the public maybe better and save the DPW director's time from also having to explain it all the time. But
You're referring to the session at the senior center?
Yes. But then I guess my main worry too is that large infrastructure projects, as we know and have experienced recently, are delayed by years. Like, we tried to install this temporary filter on well 6, and it took, I think, a full year longer than we expected. And so now well 6 is all clean, but that was only our temporary solution that's going to last us a few years. And now with the new EPA regulations with the lower quantity of PFAS, it's almost zero is allowed anymore. And 2 of our other wells also have small amounts of PFAS, so we're going to be required to clean those up. And I just don't really want to delay that process, because I know any large infrastructure project negotiating with the town of Southborough and the DCR and the MWRA is just going to take a long time, longer than we probably thought. So I'm really hesitant to slow that down. Clean water is important, and we need to move forward with something permanent.
Okay. So I don't think we have a fully baked doc yet, because we have a couple of ideas that we want to explore with the DPW, right? So why don't we table for now? Elaine, we could look at that over the next couple of weeks, and we'll come back to it again. Is that okay with you, Mr. Manon? You've been leading this for a long time, so.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. And just a couple of things. One is, I agree with Amy. The goal is absolutely to promote and ensure clean water for the town residents, and also have full transparency on how we are tackling, how we are strategizing, and what's our best path forward, not to slow us down. So we need to incorporate, or, I'm fully open to suggestions, and these are great feedback, I think, Elaine, to incorporate how we can clarify that part. And we cannot forget the larger goal, which is, when we have a $30 million MWRA versus, 3 fixes for a couple of millions or 3 millions, what are the short-term repercussions? What are the long-term objectives and fulfillment? We need to really have thorough research and, thoughtful minds and leadership in that. And then there are processes going through all of these, through the state and others. So it is to help is the main goal. So more clarification is always welcome. And in terms of the DPW, in the original one, I had a representation from DPW to exactly form that collaboration, information exchange, and more support than the other way around. How can we clarify that? Open to that. It's I think the goal, the strategy, the philosophical theme, we are all aligned. How can we reflect it better, if not already all for that? So it's all, I think, something we can consider and incorporate, and hopefully we'll get that going. Thank you.
Okay, great. So with that, everyone sharing their comments, we're going to table this for now. A couple of things we want to tweak and look at. Maybe we'll try to take a vote on this at our next meeting or the meeting thereafter. Okay? All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda, and I believe it's the last item on the agenda. I'm a little confused because we bounced around, but I think this is it. The new employee hiring review process. There was a doc circulated in the packet. I had a chance to take a look at it. It looked pretty good to me. Not overly bureaucratic, I don't think. If everybody had a chance to look at that. Does anybody thoughts, comments, or Elaine, do you want to talk about it real quick first? And then we'll go around the room.
Yeah, just tried to put into words what the board had discussed about how it would like to review proceeding with hiring after, looking at the budgets and so forth and capital planning. So this lays out what the board would be looking at, what it would expect moving forward.
Okay. Any thoughts on the doc or any thoughts on the concept in general? I mean, we kind of had the thoughts on the concept discussion before, but anything, Mary Jo, you want to share?
No, I think that everything has to be looked at, and I think it has to be brought out. However, I just want to caution, when we're looking at this, having worked at the town and having the all-town non-union employees wind up with less than everybody else. I mean, when they got yearly increases, it was 2%, when everybody else got 3%. And every time we go and look at hiring or that, reducing salaries or trying to save some money, it all comes down on the town hall, the DPW, all the non-union employees have been the ones who've been getting hit over the years. And I just want to keep them in the forefront and make sure that we don't forget about them in our zeal to cut the budgets.
I had just that same clarifying question, Mary Jo. Does this apply to union employees?
Yes.
It would apply to union employees? I have other questions, but
New union positions. New union positions.
if someone leaves and whether or not they can fill the union position, they have to go.
We'd have to look at that and make sure, yeah, we'll look at it. If it's obligated, it's obligated, and we go from there.
Okay. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Mary Jo.
All set? You good?
Yep, I'm good.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, the other things, I'm really supportive of any time somebody leaves, resignation, retirement, or whatever, that we relook at that. It's a good time to review the job description and see if the position is needed or should change. But I also don't want to micromanage, so I'm comfortable with it if it were, if the department head and the town manager both decide this, this position is still needed, it hasn't changed very much, it's recently been revised, I would like them to just be able to go ahead and post that as is. But if they need to change the salary scale or change the job description significantly, or if it's a brand new position, like getting rid of one position and adding a comparable other one, I would like that to come before the board, but I'm worried it's too much micromanaging if, just someone quits and the position has already been posted about a year or two ago and it doesn't really need changes, that we need to review that.
This policy would bring it back before the board.
I know, so that's what I say, I don't agree with the policy.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
And I guess we should check with the union contracts to see if that would affect it.
Anything else? Joe?
So I hear your concerns, and I certainly have those because Elaine and I spoke about this, and one thing for me, it's not like everything else we've been doing in here has been kind of affirming town managers' recommendations and stuff. I see this as no different. I think it's very important to just be reviewing things at this time when we look at our budget and stuff. I think this should be a relatively, once we get up and running with it, informal process where we're coming in, and if there's a retirement or someone resigns, maybe it's part of the town manager's report every week, right? That we just talk through for a few minutes. She says, hey, we lost this employee at this position for this reason. And then really, kind of to Amy's point, she gives her recommendation, the department head's recommendation, and we take that into consideration like we do with everything else. Because I don't believe that we run the day-to-day of the town. That's Elaine's job officially tonight, right? So keeping with that thought in mind, we're just talking about things as they come up, and we're putting a level of oversight over them without us actually getting involved. I think we could go through this after the first one, maybe. Maybe the first one we spend a little time reviewing, if there's a plethora of openings that have been out for a while. But after that, it's what's changed in the last 2 weeks. And I think to allow things to continue to move on, because I think, Elaine, we talked about when if someone leaves and you guys go to post the position, it takes about a week or two to kind of get the paperwork in order, right? If you want to chime in, feel free to, but I think we said it takes about a week or two to kind of get the paper process going. If we're meeting every 2 weeks, I think you should post the things or do the process that you normally would right away, and then on that next meeting, somewhere less than 14 days from when that person resigns, likely, we just talk about it for a minute and just take your recommendation. I think we lean heavily on her recommendation in these things, that we're not spending a lot of time, and we just have a quick discussion and we move on. It should not be a big formal process. It should not be drawn out. I don't want the town employees to think that we're going to review if every time someone leaves that we're just going to not allow a backfill, because that could be detrimental to employee morale. I'm very conscious of that. So I think that's kind of my take. It's kind of a middle line approach where we don't have full control over this, and we trust our town manager to make the recommendations in the best interest of the town.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Manon?
Yeah, I think we talked about this, but just to reemphasize, again, I agree with what Amy said and what Joe was mentioning. We want to be careful about upholding and promoting our town's employees' morale, and we value their work and how we can support, don't want to overburden or don't want them to burn out. But at the same time, again, we had the budget discussion. We want to always, it's a good practice to have more transparency and more, I think, review of things as we get the opportunity to see. Now, in that regard, I agree. The process needs to be more about information update, sharing, and the recommendations, and if it's within budget, if it's something that has the proper rationale, as it was when the budget was anticipated, and the rationale still holds 6 months, 8 months into the budget, and it wasn't a position that has been, stayed vacant, for example, for 3 years in a row, and we've been fine without it. Those are the interesting ones, in my view, that may come up for a little more discussion and opportunity. But in general, it's, again, I agree with the core principles, not to, take away and put more burden, not to have any demotivating effect, or get into the operational aspect or day-to-day micromanagement of our trusted town managers' work, but more so in such time as we are having laser beam focus on everything. It's good to have that kind of practice in some shape or form, to have that visibility, transparency, where we are time to time, what are the recommendations upcoming, and are we still aligned on all of those? And that would be the format, in my view. And I spoke to Elaine in terms of some of the aggregation of reports and others for the town residents, and that can be shared in the Select Board Forum, and it's on her and the HR. They will continue to work on that. We had some of these reports coming from Norman last year, from retention, attrition, as well as prospective hires, metric perspective, so we see where we stand at any point in time, and we would want to know, as a town resident, as town leader, that type of thing. But what I think is, with these and having that breathing room, but also the essence of the discipline, we may want to see what it looks like in a couple of sessions, and then tune it according to that philosophy and the objective. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. We can always adjust, and we can adjust the doc or the policy, if you will. And we can, after we test drive it a couple of times, if it blows up in our face, we'll make adjustments. I don't think it will. My philosophy is all levels of supervision require supervision. It's business 101. This is a business. It's a $125 million business. I don't think it's going to slow us down. My current employment situation, it takes us 2 to 3 months to approve an existing position or a new position for hire. So businesses do it. I think they do it rather inefficiently. I think we're going to be way more efficient than that, which is great, that a governmental body can be more efficient than a business. So we have some work to do, maybe at work, but I think that the doc or the draft as written makes a lot of sense, and ideally I think we should, if anyone's inclined, take a vote on it this evening. Anybody want to make a motion to adopt the temporary hiring review process? We don't have a motion document.
I was just going to say,
we don't have a
one in the
motion
script.
document, no.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, do we have some more feedback to incorporate, or what are we looking to do?
Well, I think it's outlined pretty well. I think it's fairly clear how this would work. I think Elaine's comfortable with it. I think the department heads will get comfortable with it. It's not going to be a big deal. Like, this is not the end of the world for folks. So I think we should just go ahead and take the vote. And if it passes, it passes. If it fails, it fails. Okay, we move on. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the temporary hiring review as drafted. Is there anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Manon.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Ms. Lafreniere.
I'm going to abstain. I'm not ready
Okay.
right now.
Mr. Clark.
Joe Clark, yes.
Amy.
Amy Ridderbush, abstain.
Sorry?
Abstain.
Abstaining, okay. Brian Herr, yes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that review process rolling. We'll see how it works. We'll adjust if necessary. The goal is not to be punitive or stop anything. The goal is to make sure we have all levels of supervision having supervision. You're supervising this entire process of hiring for the town. come to us, tell us why you need it, and we'll say, okay.
And my goal is to be as efficient as possible and, as positive. Having been an employee for a number of years, I've been on the other end of it, so I know how people feel.
Sure. I know how they feel too. I manage a lot of them.
and through the chair, I think, Elaine, we'll do pulse check time to time. And if you feel, you'll feel, right? How your department heads feel, how the town employees feel, and we can course correct if needed. But I think it'll be coming out well.
Let's just leave it with this final thought. I mean, we've already taken the vote, and we're going to try and give it a go. We have our average home going from $12,500 to $18,500. We have to do some things different. That's just business 101. We cannot afford to do business as usual in Hopkinton for several years. This is a very small step in that process.
We can direct our town manager to do it rather than us micromanaging it.
She owns it. We're going to be that level of supervision to make sure she's doing it right. Because once you hire somebody, you own that position for a period of time, good or bad. There's just no way around it. So it's a high-risk proposition hiring, and we want to make sure that we do it right. Okay, with that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Elaine, because I didn't see it and I didn't notice it. And I know that I was told that the stopgap PFAS is already, and that we don't have to buy water anymore. And the water's fine to drink and everything's fine. Has there been a notice out for that?
Yes.
Do people understand? Because I didn't see it anywhere.
We announced it at our last board meeting as well. We announced it at our last board meeting as well.
Well, I know I mentioned it at the last board meeting, but
It's been about 2
people out
months.
there have said to me, I'm still, you're still buying water, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that they can drink the water.
Yeah, there was a press release. We can issue something else just to reinforce that.
Maybe now that it's fall and people are back in town, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, with that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting to next Tuesday.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Menon.
Shahil Manan, yes.
Mrs. Ridbush.
Mayor Bush, yes?
Joe Clark, yes?
Brian Herr, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.